My friend Elliot invited me to go camping at Short Mountain Sanctuary in Tennessee, a gay, clothing-optional, hippie commune. I call it Gay Sex Mountain. She loves taking care of newbie campers. She's like, I will get all of our gear. You don't have to worry about anything. Elliot is also one of the few women at Gay Sex Mountain. She's a lesbian, and so she has this interesting insider, outsider, perspective on everything. And Gay Sex Mountain is run by the Radical Fairies. If you're unfamiliar with them, the fairies seek to inject a religious sensibility to contemporary gay life, normally in a pagan sense. And so a lot of that I got satisfied by church. I got all those needs met by church. And I found them sometimes a little silly. They adopt fairy names to sort of own their new persona. And their names are always something like Butterscotch. And I'm not a butterscotch person. But I just lost my faith in God, and in my apostasy, I was looking at the fairies again. Maybe I was being judgmental. Maybe the reason why I was looking down my nose at them was because I secretly wanted this and just felt I couldn't have it. Maybe I love camping. Maybe what I need is a rejected Care Bear name. I don't know. I used to believe God was real. What do I know? Elliot was also she also made it sound like it was going to be like a zany 80s camp movie and I was going to come out of my shell. I'm like, well, great, sign me up. The weekend we went was the weekend that Hurricane Joaquin dumped a ton of freezing rain over the entire region. So it rained the entire way up and it rained our entire first day. We got there and we parked in temporary parking. There is long-term parking at Gay Sex Mountain. It's like Walt Disney World. We're in the goofy lot. Everyone remember where we parked? So we were in temporary parking. We set up our two tents, and Elliot rummaged through all the gear before finally sheepishly admitting, I seem to have forgotten your sleeping bag. So she gave me the 2 sleeping bag liners and the 2 blankets that she had bought on the way up. The associate attorney at the firm where I was working at the time said, that's still not a sleeping bag, Mr. Young. Objection! We looked at the donated camping supplies at the barn, but they all looked like they had been donated for a reason, and I was not coming back from this adventure with scabies. So fine, we'll just do that. We parked in the goofy lot and hiked back. When we got back, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence were having an auction. If you're unfamiliar with the Sisters, they are a drag troupe with, I'm going to say chapters, all over the country. They dress like nuns, and they wear this startlingly white pancake makeup, even over facial hair, should they have it. So a lot of them wind up looking like Cesar Romero playing the Joker. And they also do a lot of charity work for LGBT issues. After the auction, we huddled around the bonfire and tried to keep that going, and I eventually broke away from Elliot. I didn't want to cling to her all weekend, and I met other people. I met a guy who had just taken his gauges out, leaving him with a hammock of flaccid ear flesh that swayed whenever he moved. And I met a Spiky, a Femi, a Go-Go Gary, a Dirt, an Easy, a Ribbon, a Pockets. For some reason, Pockets is the bridge too far for my friends in Atlanta. They're all like, Pockets! That band's name is Pockets! A Rocky, a Cult, a Temtum. Those last 3 are actually from the hit 90s film franchise 3 Ninjas. But there are probably people with those names there. When you tell people it's your first time at Gay Sex Mountain, they greet you with, welcome home. And also, dinner and meals are signaled by a blast of a conch shell, like it's Lord of the Flies. So that signaled dinner, and I was dead last. I forgot that they have second dinner, like hobbits, because there are so many people at Gay Sex Mountain. So I was dead last for first dinner, and I had 4 gluten-free noodles and a stuffed pepper, and that was my dinner. And everyone was huddled in to the main building because of the rain outside. So I was on a bench eating my gluten-free noodles while someone else was standing over me, and we eventually started to talk. It was Spiky, a permanent resident of Gay Sex Mountain. He had moved from New York City to live forever at Gay Sex Mountain. And he's like, this is your first time? This is a terrible first weekend to come to Gay Sex Mountain. I'm so sorry. And to make it up to me, he took me to milk the goats. That is not a euphemism. There are goats at Gay Sex Mountain, and I provided moral support for Spiky. He milked them, and then he filtered out all of the goat hair and mites and detritus. I'm like, good, I support you doing that. He had other Little House on the Prairie chores, and asked if I was going to the burlesque show. And I said yes, I went to the burlesque show. It was very interesting. Another sister emceed that. And it's at another building at Gay Sex Mountain that they call Temple. And while I was there, I was so weary from walking all over creation and from being bundled up all day that I kind of started to nod off at the railing at Temple. And so I would have stayed for the dance club afterwards, but I decided to go back to the tent. And as soon as I wore all the clothes I had brought with me, and as soon as I got into the 2 sleeping bag liners and the 2 blankets, I couldn't go to sleep then. And I thought about what friends had told me. One of my fairy friends said, when you go to Gay Sex Mountain the first time, you just have to let the mountain speak to you. And I did not want to be bossed around by a chunk of geography. And Elliot said, you know, I just love going to Gay Sex Mountain and listening to the sex frogs serenade me to sleep. Sex frogs is what she calls the sound of people having sex in other nearby tents. Thankfully, I could not hear any sex frogs, but I did listen to the mountain, and if it was telling me anything, it seemed to be telling me, go home. Go home, you don't belong here, it's too late. I had lost my faith in God, and what really bothered me about that was the realization that there's no one driving this thing. There's no plan, and I had relied on that so long. I had stuck with my first partner, who was verbally abusive, way longer than I ever should have, because I thought God had brought this person into my life for a reason, and God didn't give up on me. I can't give up on this person. Similarly, I felt the same way with a Mormon I dated, which went about as well as you're probably thinking. And while I was waiting for God to bring someone to my life, for God to jumpstart my life as a gay man, while I was waiting for the zany camp 80s movie to bring me someone because of the plot, I had spent all that time waiting while everyone figured out where they fit in the gay community and who they were, and had paired off, and it was too late. And that's what I thought as I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up at 7 and couldn't go back to sleep, so I got out of the tent and immediately started to dismantle the site. I wanted to be that much closer to leaving as soon as we could, and I almost banged on Elliot's tent to wake her up so we could go, but I thought better of that. And I walked around Gay Sex Mountain being pretty much the only person up, and I took photos of the summit of Gay Sex Mountain enshrouded in rain clouds, and of the maypole with its very John Waters decoration of severed baby doll heads, and of the gazebo with its astrological drawings on the ceiling, and of the goats that had been let out to graze. And I felt kind of serene, but I was by myself, and I bounced among the buildings and our tent site waiting for Elliot, and in all my perambulations, eventually it warmed up, and it stopped raining, and the sun came out, and I finally ran into Elliot at the main building having breakfast. I'm like, great, we can, but we didn't have to go, and every reason I had for wanting to leave had evaporated, like the rain. So I resigned myself to staying a bit longer, and was still very nervously bouncing around as everyone, or at least half the camp it seemed, took off all their clothes. And I wanted to join in on that too. I grew up fat as a child though, so it's really weird for me to be naked kind of in front of anyone. It all went vertical in case you were wondering. And I But I wanted to, but I felt this restraint, and I knew if I didn't do something, I would beat myself up the entire way back and forever if I didn't just take a step. I couldn't control the weather. I couldn't control Elliot forgetting my sleeping bag. I couldn't control so much, but I could control this. I didn't have to wait for God or for this zany movie plot. I could take action, and so I took my shirt off. And that's all I could do. I found Elliot in the smoking tent. She was talking to one of the sisters who was out of drag and out of everything else for that matter. And the sister said, I've noticed you around, you seem really nervous, and I just want to tell you that it's okay, that people, when they first come to Gay Sex Mountain, tend to be really nervous, and you have to sort of get acclimated to it and come a few times and just be around the whole group. And I said, thank you, random nude stranger, that's good advice. Elliot asked if I was ready to go as the sun set, and I said, yes, I'm ready to go. And on the way back, she asked, so did you have a good time? And I said I had a miserable time, but it was interesting. And she said, would you ever go back? And I said, maybe. Thank you.